The right of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19 of Article 1 Clause A 1 Clause A of the Constitution of India is not an absolute right but subject to reasonable restrictions. What are the reasons on right to freedom of speech and expressions? Article 19 of the Constitution of India. Right to make a good or bad speech and to speak and express oneself. Science, writing, opinions. Article 19 of Article 1 of the Constitution guarantees to the citizen of India freedom of speech and expressions. Freedom of speech and considered the state freedom by the most philosophical thinkers consists of several facets including the right of express one's opinion about the fear of retribution. This element of the healthy open-minded democracy is allowed. Expressions means the right to express one's conviction and opinions freely by the words or mouth. Restriction on freedom of making speech and expressions. The state may impose by law reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech and expression. Such restrictions may relate to security of state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, contempt of court, defamation, sovereignty and integrity of India. Article restrictions on freedom of making speech and expressions. The state may impose by the law reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech and expressions. Such restrictions may be related to security of state, friendly relation with foreign states, public orders, decency of morality, contempt of court, defamation, sovereignty and integrity of India. Security of the state, friendly relation with the foreign states, public order, its decency or morality, contempt of court, defamation, sovereignty and integrity of India. An organization or some persons belonging to particular committee sat on the dharna near Jantara Mantara in New Delhi and later on moved towards Parliament House raising slogans against the government in the press for their demands. These leads to traffic jam. The government had imposed a ban on demonstration near and at the Parliament House. The organization filed a petition in the High Court against the ban, pleading infringement of their fundamental right of freedom. Will the petition be admitted? Article 19, sub-article 1, clause B gives the right to citizen to assemble peacefully and without arms. Please. And without arms. Hello. Peacefully and without arms. However, apart from the fact that the assembly must be peacefully and without arms, the state is also authorized to impose reasonable restrictions on the right in the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India. Public orders, in fact, given in case an organization of the business community states processious demonstrations and agitations before the Secretariat of the state government on busy road to press for their demands. These caused a traffic jam which is against the public order, and state can define impose a penalty on such demonstrations as banned on demonstration is valid. Petition will get rejected by the High Court. Assemble peacefully and without arms. State is also authorized to impose reasonable restrictions. The sovereignty and integrity of India or public orders. Explain the freedom of association under the Constitution of India. What reasonable restrictions have been imposed on the freedom under Article 19 of the Constitution of India? Freedom of association, Article 19, sub-article 1, clause C, sub-article 1, clause C, freedom of association, including the freedom to hold meeting and to take out processions without arms. Right to form associations from union is also guaranteed, so that people are free to have the member entertaining similar views. The right is subject to reasonable restrictions which the state may impose in the interest of sovereignty and integrity of India, public order and morality. Article 19, sub-article 1, clause G of the Constitution of India provides that all citizens shall have the right to practice any profession or to carry out any business, trade or occupation. Explain. Article 19, sub-article 1, clause G of the Constitution guarantees to all the citizens freedom to practice any profession or to carry occupation, trade or business. However, such freedom is not absolute but subject to certain restrictions as may be imposed by restrictions as may be imposed by the state. The state's powers to restrict the enjoyment of this freedom is limited to making any law imposing the reasonable restrictions in the interest of the general public in so far as to relates to the prescribe of professions of technical qualifications. Prescribe of professions and technical qualifications reasonable as professional and reasonable qualification necessary for practicing any profession and carrying out any occupation, trade or businesses or the carrying on by the state or corporations owned or controlled by the state or any trade industry and exclusion of others. In order to determine the reasonableness of the restrictions, regard must be to the nature of the business and conditions prevailing in the trade. The word restriction is widely enough to include case of total prohibition. Also, according women If the effect of the law is the elimination of dealers from the trade, the law may be valid provided it satisfies the test of reasonable or otherwise. The vital principle which has to keep in mind is that the restrictive trade should strike a proper balance between the freedom guaranteed under Article 19 sub Article 1 clause G and the social control permits by Article 19 sub Article 6. The restrictions must not be of an extensive nature beyond what is required in the interest in the public. Article 19 sub Article 1 clause G of the Constitution guarantees to all the citizens freedom to practice any profession or carry out their business, spirit or occupation. Such freedom is not absolute but subject to reasonable restrictions as may be imposed by the state. However, such restrictions must be reasonable and can be imposed only on the duly enacted laws and not to executive actions. As for the facts in the case similar to Chintaman Rao was the state of Madhya Pradesh, wherein the Supreme Court held that the central provisions and bearer regulations of manufacture of BDs Agricultural Purpose Act 1948 invalid and the constitutional must because it totally prohibits the manufacture of BDs during the agricultural season in certain parts of the state. Thus, the law passed by the government of Madhya Pradesh and unconstitutionally and invalid. Vijay, an accused, committed an offence of dacoity in 2015, and the time dacoity was punishable was imprisonment 10 years. In 2016, during the trial, a law was passed with the dacoity punishable with the life imprisonment, which penalty would be applicable for the accused Vijay. Discuss the answer with the reference of Article 27 of the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution. Protection in respect of contravention for offences. No person shall be convicted of any offences except for violation of a law in force at the time of offence, nor being subjected to penalty greater than that might have been inflicted under the law in force at the time of commission of the offence. If a particular act was not offence according to the law of the land at the time of when the person did it, that act he cannot be convicted. He cannot be convicted under any law retrospective effect, declaring as an offence. In the given case, Vijay has committed offence of dacoity in the year 2015. At the time dacoity was punishable 10 years by the law passed. Dacoity of penalty. The increased time to 11 or lifetime imprisonment. In short, so far as the criminal law creates a new offence or increases the penalty, it shall be applicable only to those offences which are committed after it coming into force and cannot cover those offences which are already been committed in the past. Okay. What do you mean by double jeopardy? Double jeopardy. Double jeopardy. Jeopardy means no one should be imprisoned or penalized offense. Protection against double jeopardy. No person can be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. It is, however, to be noted that the constitutional "and" is used between the word prosecuted and punished, and therefore it is the person has been being let off after prosecution without being punished, he can be prosecuted again. Article 20 of the Constitution of India guarantees protection against self-incrimination. Protection against self-incrimination. A person accused of any offence cannot be complied to any witnesses against himself in order, word, and accused cannot be complied to state anything which goes against him, but it is noted to be person entitled to the protection only when all the three conditions are fulfilled. He must be accused of an offence. There must be completion to be a witness. So if the person was not an accused when he was made, the statement of the was not made as a witnesses, or it was made by him without compulsion and does not result any statement against him, then the protection available under this provision does not extend to such statement. Person accused of an offence not being compliant to be witness against himself or to state anything which goes against him, but it is to be noted that the person is entitled to protection only when he has been accused of an offence. There must be compulsion to be witness. Such compulsion should result in giving evidence against himself. So if the person was not an accused when he made a statement, or the statement was made as a witness without compulsion and does not result in any statement against him, the right against self-incrimination protects persons who have been formally accused as well as to examine any suspects in the criminal cases. It also extends to cover witnesses contend that their answer could expose them to the criminal charges in ongoing investigations or even in cases other than one being investigated. Deprive his life. No person shall The prize was life, liberty, except according to the principle established by the law. The majority in the case of A.K. Gopalan was the state of Madras gave a narrow meaning of the expression of personal liberty within Article 20 and 22 by confirming that liberty of the person by influence another body. Majority of the judges of the narrow view, special procedure established by the law in this case. Section internal with the obligations, maximum liberty in A.K. Gopalan is namely that the expressions liberty means only liberty relating to the concerning the person or body of the individual has not been accepted by the Supreme Court in subsequent cases. That the expression personal liberty is no limited to the bodily restraint. The majority case in the A.K. Gopalan restrictions interpreted the expression personal liberty preferred by the majority intervention of A.K. Gopalan's case, namely that the expressions personal liberty means only the liberty relating to the concerning person or body and the individual has not been accepted. Validity of police regulations authorizing the police command. So then the code and then क्या part of the police unit. Yes, okay. Back to you.